Hey everybody, I'm making this video to talk a little bit more about drawing the negative space. If you recall, the positive space is the space where there are actual objects. So here I have a photo of the setup that we had in 2026 in observational drawing class. At least on one side of the room it was like this. So if I'm drawing the positive space, what we normally do is just look at the objects and try to draw them one by one. So for example, if I want to start drawing this stool, I might draw something that looks kind of like this. And I'm not going to do any erasing for the sake of this demonstration, so it's not going to be the best drawing ever, but I think you'll be able to get the point. So usually when we're drawing the positive space, we tend to draw one object at a time. So I'm drawing this stool, and as I had mentioned before, it's good practice to draw as if things are transparent. So now that I'm drawing this wooden stick over here, I'm just drawing straight through the stool, and later I can go in and erase the parts of the stool that wouldn't actually show through that wooden stick. And this is true for everything. So let's say I want to do this umbrella handle next. I see that the umbrella handle is right around here. There's that gold part of it. And I can see just a smidge of it on the other side of that stick. It's got that little tab where you push on the umbrella button to make the umbrella open. And I can tell already that this is positioned incorrectly, but it's not the point. So anyway, same thing. I go in and I erase the parts of the umbrella that wouldn't, the parts of the stool that wouldn't actually show through the umbrella. Or here I have to erase the part of the umbrella that wouldn't show through the stick, the wooden stick. So this is pretty normal. This is how we usually draw. And this is drawing the positive space. So now if we want to draw the negative space, what's the difference? So for the 2026, which is what I'm making this video in reaction to, but I hope it will be useful to others, the kind of telltale sign of students who did the assignment incorrectly, whether through lack of understanding or because they figured it would be easier and just did not follow directions on purpose, is these points where you try to erase points of overlap but things were left showing. So just to circle it in red to show you what I'm talking about, like I saw a lot of this in the assignments that were submitted, just that obviously it was in pencil, so it was more like I would often see a very light line going all the way across. So I could tell, when I see that, I can tell that you were really just drawing the positive space as usual and did that to give the whole drawing the look of a negative space study without actually doing a negative space study. So what should you have done instead? I'm going to hide this layer, regular drawing, and come to this other layer, negative space shapes. So first, let's talk about the negative space shapes. Negative space shapes are made up of the edges of multiple objects. That's one of the primary differences. So for example, I'm about to just trace this negative space shape, and if you remember from the demo that I did, when I went up to each setup in the classroom and I stuck my arm through the negative spaces, I could do that because the negative space, as we said, is the space where there is nothing. So these areas that I'm filling in now, if I were in the classroom and if this setup were still up, I could stick my whole arm through these spaces that I'm currently filling in red. And notice that again, the edges of these shapes, the edges of these negative space shapes are composed of multiple objects. So one of the shapes here is the stool. Other edges is this wooden stick, this other wooden stick, the umbrella stem is another kind of border of these negative space shapes. Here we have a negative space shape that's kind of like a triangle, and it's formed by the edges of that umbrella stick. There was that hollow black plastic dowel, and this wooden stick here. Here's another negative space shape. This edge is the wooden stick, the umbrella, and then technically I'd have to go between every little piece of the spring, of the coil of the spring there, and fill that in. I'll just do one more. So here's another negative space shape. So as you can see, and let's make sure we don't go accidentally into the positive space. I went into the table a little bit there. So I go into just the negative space, and then what I'm doing here, filling in the shape with red, is analogous to you shading in the negative space a solid gray. So here I have these shapes, and if I copy them, or if I just move it so you can see them in isolation, there it is. So see how this drawing is fundamentally different from drawing the positive space and erasing the points of overlap. And of course it is easy to say, well, you trace the photo. Well, I can do the same thing by looking at the photo without doing any tracing at all. I can still just look, well, in this case I am looking at the photo, but I look at the photo and try to match those angles and try to leave the appropriate amount of space between objects. There's that round part of the stool. And noticing again, like this shape, it kind of slants, but then it goes up. It goes like more vertical, and there's a little tiny bit of a vertical point there. So in this way, you can do the same thing in real life. When you're in the classroom, or if you ever want to do one of these at home, you just set up a bunch of objects so that they overlap, and pay attention to the negative space shapes. And you draw shapes rather than drawing forms, which ideally, when we're doing regular drawing, that's what we should be aiming for. We should be aiming for drawing volumetrically, as we talked about earlier in the year. And here, see, like I noticed I made a mistake because I didn't leave enough room for that wooden stick. So it's okay to erase your negative space shapes. It's okay to adjust your negative space shapes, but I'm not adjusting them by drawing the positive space and then erasing points of overlap, as many students try to do. All right. A lot of times people mention how art is something that can help you learn to see the world in a different way, or just, quote, think outside the box, unquote. And a negative space study is an excellent example of that. If you do it correctly, it forces you to literally look at the world the opposite of how we usually look at it. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.